All right. I want to welcome everybody here tonight at a wonderful potluck dinner.
Wonderful.
I thank Tracy's husband for the vegetarian mushroom stroganoff and my own humble contribution, along with everybody else who brought something for us. Tonight's subject is the fourth ray. It's part of a vast subject. We're only looking at a portion of it because it's very active in the world at this time. And it really is bringing in chaos, which is characteristic of the fourth ray. It said that people who have fourth ray minds are people who everything's going along perfectly in their lives, and then they mess it up. You're out of balance there on your tripod, you're on your chair. So it's also the soul ray of humanity. So humanity is always in crisis. It won't cease for another 10 million years until we're in the sixth root race, in the sixth round. And it's a long time to endure, but it molds and shapes humanity. This ray has been dormant. And when we say dormant, we don't mean that it's been completely inactive. It has been active. There are always fourth ray souls at some degree or the other in the world. Fourth ray personalities, fourth ray astral bodies. We'll talk about some of those things. We'll go ahead and get started here. We say that the seven rays, we live in a septenary solar system, where the solar system is composed of seven energies that emanate from beyond our solar system. They are, we say, extra-systemic. So from the infinite, these rays come in through the galaxies, through our solar system, through the Pleiades down here, the Great Bear seven head centers of the one being, and through the astrological signs and into man, who is composed of various rays. We do a thing called ray analysis, where we, through a series of specific questions, and hopefully the client who we're doing the ray analysis for will answer the questions truthfully. Sometimes they don't, surprisingly. We'll be able to put together a ray analysis that will tell us something very deep about the psychology of that person. When psychology becomes an exact science, it will be the science of the seven rays. This is a book that's written by my friend and teacher, Dr. Douglas Baker. Does that show up on the screen there? Esoteric Psychology, which is an exact science. We're 100 years ahead of time with esoteric psychology, but it's coming. And it's through books like this and through the work of Alice Bailey that esoteric psychology is beginning to become a reality in the world. And there are many students, former students of Baker's, and some of Baker's students have students. It's what we're attempting to do here, is to spread the word and externalize the teachings of the seven rays and of esoteric psychology, which is a very, very important subject. It's said in the esoteric schools that in the New Age, when a child takes off to kindergarten, and is in early first few years of school, that the guidance counselors in the New Age will be trained in esoteric astrology and in esoteric psychology. And throughout the student's career in grade school and high school and beyond, their ray analysis and their horoscopes will be correctly plotted, and they'll be able to detect things like the soul's purpose of an individual student. So instead of going through life blindly, they'll be able to be educated into the purpose that their soul wants them to fulfill in this particular lifetime, or whatever the future lifetime is. So this is the origin, we say, the origin of the seven rays is beyond our solar system. It's beyond our galaxy. It's out into the infinite. When the masters were asked if this structure of these seven rays, this septenary nature of our solar system, is a reality elsewhere, they said, based on what they knew and understood, that yes, this permeates the known universe. The laws of the seven rays are a fact and a reality for the entire system. One of the things that I talked about in the past, we've mentioned it here a few times, that Alice Bailey, about 80 or 90 years ago, probably 90 years ago, maybe 100 years ago, said that one of the indications, and we're going to talk about indications tonight because it's relevant to what's happening in the world, that as the fourth ray gained momentum and came into the world, that blue flowers, different kinds of bluebells. This is an article from Scientific American magazine that 11 years ago said that they were flabbergasted by the fact that blue flowers inexplicably were being killed off or were not growing all across the planet. Certainly blue flowers still exist, but they're also dying off in at a tremendous rate of speed. And eventually, there won't be any. It's just the way it works. These are the seven ray correspondences, and it shows you how these rays work. That we say we have rays 1, 2, and 3 are rays of aspect. Rays 4, 5, 6, and 7 are rays of attribute. The balancing ray is the fourth ray. Humanity is the fourth kingdom in nature of seven kingdoms. We are in the fourth round. 4 has a profound significance for us, but we'll go through some of the rays. We're not going to do all of them. But this is in Baker's book, Esoteric Psychology. The first ray is the ray of will and power. The second ray is the ray of love, wisdom. It's the ray quality of our solar system is love. We say God is love. Ray 3 is active intelligence. Ray 4 is art and harmony through conflict, our subject tonight. Ray 5 is concrete knowledge and science. Ray 6, the ray of Jesus, the sixth ray master, is the ray of devotion and idealism. And ray 7 is ceremonial order and ritual, or also we sometimes say ceremonial order and magic. I have a seventh ray personality. The Catholic Church has a seventh ray personality in that they are ceremonial. Certain aspects of my life are ritualistic and ceremonial. The colors, very important for each of the rays, is that ray 1, first ray of will and power, is oftentimes represented in scarlet and white. Blavatsky, who had a first ray soul and a first ray personality, would oftentimes be seen with a scarlet skirt and a white silk blouse and a big plumed hat cocked on her head at a certain angle, very ostentatious. The second ray color is indigo. It is the color of the midnight sky. It's not by accident that we live in a second ray solar system and that the color of the sky at night is the color that rules the second ray, indigo. Active intelligence is green. Yellow is the color of the fifth ray of a fourth ray, of art and harmony. Orange is fifth ray. Blue rose is the sixth ray, and violet is the seventh ray color. Amethyst, a lot of times I wear a rather ostentatious amethyst ring that has my horoscope engraved around the actual stone, the amethyst in the ring itself. It kind of adds a power of order, even though I have a seventh ray personality. When you try to give these lectures without notes, it helps if you have a little additional benefit from an amethyst. I wear it on my middle finger. We'll talk about esoteric anatomy and how these seven rays express themselves through the anatomy of a human being. Of course, the zodiacal signs, we're not going to go through all of them, but typically they're combinations of these rays and variations. Capricorn, Leo, and Aries in certain percentages make up the first ray. The fourth ray is composed of scorpionic energies, Scorpio, Sagittarius, and Taurus. Try to be mindful of these things when you're doing an analysis of a horoscope. I do a lot of horoscopes for people who don't know their time of birth. And it creates a problem. So we do a solar chart. And I've had a really salubrious results with doing solar charts. Planetary rulers, they fall under the rays. You can see here what the various rays are. What is interesting of all of these, we show the foods, proteins are first ray, fats, second ray, carbohydrates, third ray. We don't know yet what fourth ray foods are, but vitamins are fifth ray, water, of course, is sixth ray, and the mineral salts, which are so important to good health and are a part of the Bach flower remedies, is seventh ray. The musical notes, do, first ray, so, second ray, fa, third ray, mi, fourth ray, re, fifth ray, ti is sixth ray, and la is the seventh ray note. Politics, first ray, fascism, democracy, second ray, socialism, third ray, city-state is fourth ray. This is what we're headed into. You can watch TV any night of the week, and there will be arguments between the governor of Texas and the politicians in Washington, D.C., primarily Joe Biden and the governor of Florida, the governor of Texas, will be arguing. And what those arguments are going to lead to is going to be city-state government. The point of tension when the United States of America was formed, and one of the great concerns of the founding fathers was states' rights versus federal rights. How much control does the federal government have? And that's a huge issue, and it's going to continue to be a huge issue until it's resolved. My knowledge of it tells me, my understanding of it tells me that the city-state government will win out. That's what existed when the Fourth Ray was very potent 500 years ago during the European Renaissance, in particular in Italy. City-state government, and it's getting back to that. It's the only way that the swamp in Washington, D.C. can be drained is through decentralized government. Anybody, even upon casual observation of the history of America and any aspect of it, will tell you there is expansion and there is contraction. It's like breathing, expansion and contraction. And we're entering a point with the Fourth Ray where there will be a contraction of federal government, totally corrupt, and power given back to the states. They're arguing and fighting about it tonight in Washington, D.C., and every night. It's a major issue, and it's going to happen. We will have a regionalized, we'll still have a central government in Washington, but tremendously diminished from what it currently is. It's just a big lumbering bureaucracy. Oligarchy is Fifth Ray. Theocratic despotism is Sixth Ray, and communism is Seventh Ray. Here's what we want to I'm going to skip through this because for tonight's lecture, we're interested in nations' souls and in the personality of nations. We say that India and China have a first ray soul. UK and the USA have a second ray soul, which they actually share. It was never the intention of the spiritual hierarchy to have America and England function as separate countries. They were supposed to be one expansive government under really the control of Great Britain or the UK. But because England had a king who was suffering from the ravages of syphilitic insanity, he was urging war constantly with the American colonies, which eventually won out. And we know the rest of the story. But our greatest ally, of course, is the UK. And there's huge reasons behind that we'd have to go back 6 or 7 lectures ago where we were talking about the root races and the sub races and about the Anglo-Saxon subrace. Some of you may remember that lecture and about its significance as far as World War II was concerned. Very important subject. We don't know what nations have third ray souls, but North Korea might fall into that category. Germany and Austria, fourth ray souls. France, fifth ray. If you think about it, this makes a great deal of sense. And there's tension right now because of the deal on the nuclear submarines with France and America. Italy and Spain both have sixth ray souls, very devotional. Catholicism in both Spain and Italy is still a powerful thing, although the sixth ray is dying out. The seventh ray, Russian Orthodoxy, very ceremonial. The Russians like a lot of that ceremony. So does the Catholic Church. We'll talk about that in just a minute too. The nation's personalities, the UK first ray, Germany is a first ray, started the last 2 major wars, World War I, World War II. Brazil, a second ray, personality. China and France, third ray. You think about what China is doing in the world today. It's a will ray. The will rays are the odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, and 7. The love rays are the even numbers, 2, 4, and 6. We say are love rays. We live in a love ray solar system, as I said earlier, and we say that God is love, and that love is a powerful energy for all of us in this solar system. So, Austria, which ones did I leave out here? Spain was a 7th ray personality. Interesting to think about. Both the USA and Russia have a 6th ray personality. It's the 6th ray personality of America, along with its 2nd ray soul, that makes it prone to socialism. Young people always like socialism. As they grow and mature, they don't. But in the early years of people's lives, a lot of times the idea of being taken care of by Uncle Sam sounds like a wonderful thing. It is until you run out of money, and then it's a horrible thing, and it never works. Even the shapes fall into the categories of the rays, with a circle being 1st ray, a triangle being 2nd ray, a square being 3rd ray. A circle squared is 4th ray. A spheric lens, we're not talking about a circle so much, but a spheric lens is 5th ray. That would be like a microscope, would be a good symbol of that. A cube is 6th ray, and a pyramid is 7th ray. So those are some of the rays, and we have lists of these. If anybody wants them, I'll try to get these printed out. They are in Baker's book, Esoteric Psychology, which is available in Kindle, so online.
Oh, he's talking about the rays.
The rays of humanity. The soul ray of humanity is 4th ray, and the personality ray of humanity is the 5th ray. An interesting thing about the 4th ray and the 5th ray, a lot of times I've experienced it myself in my life, where I could vacillate between a 4th ray mind and a 5th ray mind, depending upon what tasks I had to perform in life. The 5th ray mind, concrete knowledge, might be something that was related to mathematics. 4th ray mind would be, I studied art in college, and the entire school that I went to was composed of 4th ray people with 4th ray minds, and many 4th ray personalities, and a few 4th ray souls. When I worked at General Motors, it was the same thing. 4th ray creativity. I was like going back to art school again, only I'm getting paid for it. And I'm designing automobiles for General Motors. And it was all 4th ray creative sculpture. I sculpted cars out of clay, life-size interiors and exteriors. And the 4th ray mind, a lot of times, if you're studying academically, you'll have to rely on a 5th ray mind. A 5th ray mind in academia is a good thing. Here's the special virtues of the 4th ray: strong affections, sympathy, physical courage, generosity, devotion, quickness of intellect and perception. These are the opposites of the 4th ray. of humanity. The weakness is self-centeredness, worry, inaccuracy, lack of moral courage, strong patience, indolence, extravagance. We see this as being an affliction. It's very evident in the world today. The virtues that humanity needs to acquire are serenity, confidence, self-control, purity, unselfishness, accuracy, mental and moral balance. Very important. This is the horoscope of the United States of America. It has a Gemini ascendant. Nobody knows the time of the birth, but the beauty of astrology is that once you begin, like ray analysis, once you begin to know the history that the country has existed for 200 plus years, you know through the historical events of America that civil war, slavery, all of those things that divided the country is a characteristic of a Gemini ascendant in the horoscope. And that's how we came to this conclusion. There are people out there that are saying all kinds of stuff about what the ascendant is. Trust me, the ascendant in the chart of America is Gemini, and Gemini rules things that come in pairs. And what did we say earlier? That England and America share a second ray soul. There are two countries sharing a second ray soul. But anyway, it has this division thing that's constantly an affliction. But Gemini also unites the twins, Castor and Pollux, in a Roman mythology. Very important. Second ray soul, sixth ray personality, we see written up here. Again, like I said earlier, it makes the country prone to socialism, which is one of the great fears, I can guarantee you, of the spiritual hierarchy. America is a unique republic and a democratic government, and it was never the intention or the wish of the masters or the spiritual hierarchy of this planet to ever become a socialistic country. You need to fight it tooth and nail. So just some things to look at there. One of the things that I talk about quite often are the prophecy of the three outpourings of wisdom teachings, of which theosophy was the preparatory phase. The first outpouring in 1875 when the Theosophical Society was formed, and it lasted for 50 years, being energized by the Nirmanakayas. The second phase, which we say this was Blavatsky, Moria, Kutumi, DK was a part of this also, as he became Blavatsky's teacher, somewhat to her chagrin. And eventually he became the integral part of the intermediate phase, which was from 1925 to 1975, another 50-year period where he was able to telepathically influence and communicate with Alice Bailey and others. I knew people who knew Alice Bailey. I know people who DK has made contact with. It was interesting was that many of them were from South Africa. People like Art Jariansa, Douglas Baker, Annie Gowland, who did the painting up here of DK that's on the top of my bookshelf. But Steiner was kind of an intermediary force between these two periods. Brilliant man. We'll maybe later talk a little bit about some of Steiner's work, one of my favorite guys. They're all my favorite guys, as long as they're fifth degree initiates, Arhats, fourth degree. Now we're into the revelatory phase. Bailey died in, I think, 49. But her work actually started around 1919. Didn't solidify until about 2025. Has been very influential through 1975. Still many Bailey disciples who, unfortunately, like the Blavatsky disciples, can't seem to move beyond it. They've built a religion, many of them, which they were told not to do, out of either this first outpouring or out of the second, the intermediate phase. We are now in this phase, which is the revelatory phase. This is the part of why I was born into the world, was to be a part of this third outpouring between 1975 and 2025, which now is only, 3.5 years away of that, and it'll be 2025. But it's the revelatory phase. A lot of this phase is material, like the rays accentuated, where Blavatsky only inferred the rays. Alice Bailey gave pretty extensive information on it, but the book that I just showed you by Baker even adds to it. It adds to the work of Bailey quite handsomely. And this work is what we call the third or the revelatory phase, 1975 to 2025, at which time the masters are supposed to materialize or externalize in the world. I believe that some of them are already here in the world now. It's not going to be a magic day on 2025 when they'll all of a sudden appear. But they're gradually, they're coming in. Here's the preparatory phase here that we just talked about. This was the first outpouring. Blavatsky, born on August 12, 1831, died May 8, 1891. These are many of the people who surrounded her in India, various arhats and initiate teachers. What's that noise?
Feedback.
So that's the preparatory phase. Here's the people that were a part of that. Mahatma Maurya, Kutumi Lal Singh, and the Tibetan Zawal Kul, DK, they call him. DK was also involved with Alice Bailey in her outpouring, and the 24 books that she wrote were, for the most part, were telepathically communicated to her by DK. I have a kind of an interesting story about Alice Bailey. I was friends through a very mysterious circumstance with a group of initiate mystics from South Africa. And the one gentleman that was a part of the group, his name was Joseph Busby, Dr. Joseph Busby. Extraordinary human being. Completely changed my life. He had been told by Saint Germain to give a book to Alice Bailey. This book, through very mysterious circumstance, as I remember, was either materialized or it was a book that Busby wrote 40 some years ago. I can't remember exactly, but he was to give it to Alice Bailey. She was in New York at the time, and he went to see her. He'd never met her before. And he had this book, very unusual book. It was a book on Rosicrucian alchemy. And he said when he approached the door to her apartment that the door was ajar and that he could see in. And she was sitting there. It was a huge like north light window, and she was looking out into space, and it was at a table, a desk, and he knocked on the door, and she kind of was startled, and she got up and came to the door and opened the door. He introduced himself and said, I'm Douglas Baker, and I have a book that Saint Germain told me to give to you. And she said, well, give it to me. And he handed it to her, and then she invited him in, and that was his meeting with Bailey. But DK had contact with Joseph Busby for many, many years, and Busby, he was an unusual human being. It had to be a 4th or 5th degree initiate. He said that the masters, a group of masters, were using his throat chakra, and they would speak through him, and you could see the voice, the change, the inflection of the voice changing. And his wife Louise would tell me she knew the voices, and Busby was just an instrument. And he said that they would line up to as they did with Leadbeater, they'd line up to see through his third eye, a conical shaped lens that he had created out of etheric substance, and to view the structures of the atomic elements. And they would line up with Busby to use his throat chakra. Extraordinary. And the stuff that came out of him was so powerful that I can remember being in rooms with a couple of hundred people, and he would start to speak. And these people, the words were, Busby himself, when I asked him about it, said they were supercharged with cosmic energy, and that people would just be sobbing uncontrollably. Very, very unusual circumstance, but DK was one of them who used his throat, Busby's throat chakra. Here's Alice Bailey here in her group, triangles, and the group ills and the sweep of epidemics of any kind through the masses are founded in some conditions in etheric substance of the planet. So we're all involved in this current hysteria surrounding COVID-19. Those diseases which are general, national, racial, and planetary find their way to an individual via his etheric body, but are not so personal in their implications. Esoteric Healing, page 25. I had a friend recently who fretted and worried. It became a family issue between this friend, a female, and her daughter-in-law and her son. And she worried about it. And I told her, I warned her, I said, you're going to be drawing that illness to you. The more you externalize it and internalize it, and you worry about this disease. She's in a hospital in Detroit on a what do you call it, ventilator, taking drugs. Thought we were going to lose her, but she's come out of it and is doing better. Energy follows thought. Here's our wonderful teacher, Rudolf Steiner, and this is the Goetheanum, the first Goetheanum, which was built out of wood, the stone foundation, but the rest of it's built out of wood. And Steiner designed this thing himself. Brilliant, brilliant man. Hammers and nails were not allowed to be used in the construction of this building. Those are all interlocking pieces of wood. And the reason it had to be that way was because Steiner didn't want nails hammered into the wood because of the vibration of the nail and the hammering piercing the wood. And the reason he wanted that was he was trying to attract angelic fire devas to the school for a purpose. And the purpose was that the occult prophecy says that when the greatest schools or temples in the world is consumed by fire, the Christ or world teacher will be born into the world. The rumor and the myth that evolved out of this incredible fire that destroyed the Goetheanum on the night of December 31st, 1922, December 31st, at a few minutes before midnight, was said that the Nazis burned it down. Certainly Hitler hated Rudolf Steiner. He feared Steiner more than anybody on the planet and had made numerous efforts to have Steiner killed, who never succeeded. But that was the plan of the Goetheanum. And then he knew that when that school spontaneously burst into fire and was consumed, that he would rebuild it out of reinforced concrete. It's actually ferrule cement, virtually indestructible. Ferrule cement is so strong that they make manhole covers out of it in Europe. Hitler built the Autobahn out of ferrule cement. There's been one minor repair in 80 years to the Autobahn highway. Steiner says that, going back to this idea of epidemics, the only other method that is just as good is to live in the center of an epidemic or epidemic illness and to think of nothing but the sickness all around, filled only with the fear of getting sick. That would be equally effective. If fear of the illness is the only thing created in such a place, and one goes to sleep at night with that thought, it produces after images, imaginations impregnated with fear. That is a good method of cultivating and nurturing germs. And that's exactly what my friend did that I told you about. You're nurturing it. You're nurturing it as you're awake in the conscious world. And when you're asleep at night in the astral world, you're feeding it. You'll attract it to you. Millions of people are doing it. Mm. It's interesting to see the people at the football games who aren't wearing masks and are defying the rule of the government at this time. You have to fight it, and you have to stand fast against it. If you fear it, you'll attract it to yourself. I told people that a year ago. Just had this friend who came down. Epidemics historically evolve out of China. We know about all of them. We know about Asian flu, Hong Kong flu. Remember that one? People here are old enough, well, except Julia, to remember the Hong Kong flu. I think that was the first one I really was aware of. Bird flu, SARS. Remember SARS?
I don't.
SARS-like virus 2020, the Wuhan or Chinese virus, as Trump so appropriately called it. There's reasons why these come. The viruses, what happens is the Chinese raise their chickens above the pigs. And the chickens, which are birds, these are primarily birds type viruses, the birds' droppings fall into the food that the pigs eat, and then the pigs excrete the food, the virus, in their waste, and then it's gathered up in the winds, that trade winds or the jet stream, and are carried around the planet and the whole world every year to ends up getting some variation of a flu. So maybe when the Chinese quit doing whatever they're doing with their chickens and their pigs, that may help stop. But the Wuhan virus, this COVID-19, is a different breed, and we'll find out eventually a great deal more about it. This is a picture of it, and these are the actual viruses or COVID-19 attached to a regular virus. And they say that this is man-made. These little red pustules, or whatever they are, mushroom-shaped things, are actually man-made viruses that were, would Fauci call it? There's a name for them. Anyway, virus lockdown protest. This is in Michigan, right here where we live. End the lockdown. It will end when people end it, not when the government says it'll end. One of the great things that Steiner said that made tremendous sense to me was he said that 100 years ago, he wrote that the great mass mental illness of America in the 21st century would be hysteria. Baker called it mania, that there is a mania that is affecting people. But they're always, because humanity has a fourth-ray soul, and there are many fourth-ray minds in the world. About 60% of the world population has a fourth-ray mind. There are all these things that we're taught to fear. In 2000, it was Y2K. Y2K was going to destroy everything. It was going to destroy all the computers. It was going to destroy all the banking in the world. Remember that? Mm-hmm. 2001, anthrax. It's going to kill us all. Somebody in Japan or somewhere had come up with anthrax, and they'd actually used it in a subway, I think, as I remember, in Tokyo. West Nile virus, it's going to kill us all. SARS in 2003, it's going to kill us all. 2005, it was the bird flu. That was going to kill everybody. 2006, E. coli is going to kill us all. 2008, the bad economy is going to kill us all. 2009, swine flu is going to kill us all. 2010, BP oil. Remember that one? 2012, the Mayan calendar is the end of the world. I remember I spoke to 600 people at a huge convention on the 2012, what I called the non-event. And it proved to be correct. The Mayans had to end the calendar somewhere in their long count system, and that was where they ended it.
So
Ended it.
So it's 8:15.
It's 8:15.
Yeah. So if you want a question.
Well, let's just go through a couple of these, and then we'll
Okay.
have questions and answers.
Okay.
If I can answer, I don't guarantee I can. North Korea, Ebola. And we're going to talk about that in a future lecture, because there's a correlation between Ebola and AIDS. And I gave that lecture just as an ironic twist of fate. I gave the lecture on the origins of AIDS. Remember that one? Some of you were here. And Ebola is a part of that. And what the theory was behind it, very interesting. Disney measles and ISIS, Zika virus, coronavirus. There you go. We'll have to finish next week. So we're about halfway through the lecture. Anybody has any questions, I'll try to answer them. I don't guarantee that I can.
Yeah. And if it's through Zoom, you should probably unmute yourself.
Yeah, everybody has to unmute if you want to ask a question. Surely somebody has a question. All right. I know we covered a lot of material.
What is the, David?
Yeah,
What is the 2021 food for thought?
2021 food for thought is that is the COVID-19. We're fighting the COVID-19. And I think
The
that
virus,
we're-
the vaccine will save us.
I got mixed feelings about that. I haven't had the vaccination. And the reason I didn't get the vaccination is I had 5 vaccinations in the last 2 years. Alice Bailey, 90 years ago, in her writings, warned about over-vaccination. When my daughter, 20 some years ago, was 6 years old and going into the first grade, she had to have this series of vaccination. My wife was a really good nurse, and I were just horrified by the thought of taking this little girl that maybe weighed 60 pounds or something like that, and sending her down to the Macomb County Health Department to get these horrible vaccinations. And we held off for as long as we could, which was a good thing. She didn't suffer any ill effects from it, but many people think, I'm not so sure, many people think that autism is caused by over-vaccination. Like I said, Alice Bailey warned about it 80 or 90 years ago. I remember reading it in her books.
So I have a question. Now you're saying this is the 4th ray coming.
4th ray brings chaos into the world.
So when is gonna be?
It's happening now.
Yeah, but when you say that all these things start like 2000 to it seems like there's always something and always.
The 4th ray is always present,
Oh,
but it's being intensified. Rays 4, rays 3, 3, 4, and 7
mhm.
are being intensified. Eventually, the chaos will give way to harmony. If you would have told people 80 years ago, 90 years ago, that the Germans and the Japanese would be our greatest allies in 30 years into the future, nobody would have believed you. They would have, there's no telling what people would have done to you, because they were that adamant against the Japanese and the Germans. We were in World War II.
So, but now if you
And
say,
now they're our greatest allies. So it shows that the conflict and the crisis can lead to harmony.
okay, so now it is now we're going towards the 4th ray. What about the past ray? Which was the past then?
Past rays that are dying out,
No, like
6th ray.
before the 4th ray. That was we were in the 6th ray.
Yeah, we're in the 6th ray, and the 6th ray is dying out. That's why the Catholic churches are all empty in Detroit. It's just unbelievable. Go to a Catholic church in Detroit, which is a 6th ray institution, and go in these huge churches. And I remember being there, it was Easter, down at the big one there on Woodward. Beautiful church.
Angel,
And
I'm sorry, Angel has a question. So Nix is gonna be Angel.
20 people in the church. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, hi everyone. Hi, David. Great,
Hi.
great conversation. I'm not sure who was just speaking to you. Was the question having to do with what ray was controlling humanity's personality prior to the incoming?
No, she was asking, she was
Okay.
asking what was a dominant ray before the 4th ray becomes the more dominant ray, and that's the 6th ray. The 6th ray is dying out. The
Right.
truth is that the 5th ray is also beginning to die out.
And so we have the 4th ray and the personality coming through. And then we also have the 7th ray.
Yeah. No, we have the 6th ray in America. Second ray, 4th ray. 2nd ray, soul. 6th ray, personality. Fourth ray is the ray of humanity. It's the soul, the oversoul of humanity is fourth ray. Humanity is constantly in crisis. That will continue for another 10 million years, according to the occult teachers, the wisdom.
So to clarify, I guess the level of, from what aspect are you talking about the rays? The sixth ray of the earth that's been working through humanity and all its societal systems, et cetera, has been predominantly the sixth ray. Of course, we have other rays playing their role, but it was predominantly the sixth ray. With that going out and the seventh ray coming in, that is not the the level of the entire human race.
The seventh ray, the sixth ray is dying out.
But the sixth ray of all of humanity, I mean, of the planet, correct?
Yeah, it's dying out. Yeah, it's dying out. It's
Right.
going to be replaced by rays 3, 4, and 7. And one of the qualities, one of the things that will happen with seventh ray is the environmental movement is seventh ray. Restoration of the health of the planet, bringing order and health to the planet is a seventh ray thing.
Correct. So we have different levels of where we are applying the rays in the conversation. So when we talk about the sixth ray being predominant on Earth and passing out or declining as the seventh ray becomes more and more into power on the planet, that affects the entire race. But then you also, to your point, have the soul and personality rays of each country. And that's a different level of conversation.
Yeah, they're still going to have, we're still going to have a sixth ray personality. America is. But one of the things that's going to happen is that we're going to see changes in our government to more of a fourth ray system of decentralized government through control and power being given back to the states and taken away from the federal government. That's the way the swamp will be drained. It'll be decentralized government.
So I'm so confused now. So the Americas, United States is gonna be the fourth ray, not the rest of the world. Or
No, it's happening all over the planet. The
It
fourth ray
affects
is coming.
humanity.
It affects everybody. 500 years ago, the Renaissance of Europe was fourth ray. They had city-state governments. Italy was a classic example of that. It's going to happen again. And it'll be only this time, it will be the fourth ray on steroids. It'll be the fourth ray on steroids because the world has changed in 500 years. We have computers that will do the work of 2,000 people. New metals are being invented. Science is inventing new things all the time, and it's changing the world. A computer, an iPhone has changed the world. The entire world now is incommunicado, where it was non-communicado 150 years ago. You had to use a telegraph or something as archaic as that. And even more crude systems 200 years ago. So the world is constantly changing, and these incredible changes are being amplified by new inventions, new materials, rediscovering the ancient histories of lost civilizations. It's all going to change the world view. And it all has a very positive effect. Yeah, Randy.
Yeah, you have something at the bottom of this last slide. Does turning off the TV affect our personal ray, or does it affect the country's personal ray, or what does that do if we turn off the TV?
it probably will help your sanity.
So it'll help us stay out of the chaos.
Chaos,
The chaos.
mental chaos. And if you have a fourth ray mind
Mhm.
and you watch too much television, you got to be careful. Here's the good thing about TV. The good thing about TV is that when you watch television, you are being instantly made clairvoyant. You can see events that are happening around the world sitting in your living room.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean that you're really clairvoyant, but you are artificially. See what I mean? But the good thing is that by exercising the viewing of events around the world, is it's stimulating portions of the brain where clairvoyance exists. And in the future, all of mankind will be clairvoyant.
Oh my God, that's
part
kind
of
of
the-
nice.
Part of the prophecy.
And that's where dishonesty and deception will become outdated,
Yeah, they'll be depleted.
depleted, yeah.
Anybody else got a question? We're running out of time, so we'll have to get our questions. What happened to the power?
David, this is Angel. I just wanted to share real quickly on page 639 in Rays and Initiations by Bailey. It gives a real good breakdown of the summary of the fourth ray. And it says that the principle of conflict is preparing the way for the return, or I would say reappearance, of the Christ, who will inaugurate the new era of harmony.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Here's what Blavatsky says. Everybody's looking in typical Piscean fashion for one Christ figure to be devoted to, whether it's Christ, whether it's Krishna, whether it's some other Christ-like figure, Maitreya, whatever you want to call him. He's a world teacher. Here's a thought for you. What if he's already been here? That's what I believe. I believe that he's already been here. And if the prophecy that I showed you earlier about the burning of the Goetheanum fulfilled the occult prophecy, and Steiner knew it, it meant that the Christ was being born into the world at the time of the fire Devas consuming the Goetheanum. That's all I'll say about that. Yeah, Randy.
Are
I'd
the
like to-
fire- Oh, wait, go ahead.
I'd like to add just a bit from my experiences as throughout life is that the Christ certainly has been here, is here, and that the hierarchy also is here.
Yeah,
And
I've experienced it. I know what you're talking about.
And I think that we should become aware of that as best we can to help others to start seeing that instead of getting stuck. A lot of people are getting very, very dogmatic without even realizing. And we
Yeah.
need to expand, and we need to do it now.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's a hard thing to do because people are stuck in their belief systems. You have to remain malleable.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what degree initiation you've taken. You have to, the higher you go, the more malleable you become. And people are primarily inflexible and incapable of growing and expanding. And they get stuck in these old ideas about Jesus reincarnated. We had a very lovely lady that came to a few of our meetings here and then decided she wanted to leave because she's really only concerned about Jesus. And she'd had an experience that has been an obsession for her throughout most of her life. And so she didn't come to our meetings anymore because, we just don't fulfill her expectations.
Well, it's the few that carry the many.
That's right.
And so we just, must
Mhm.
keep forward going on, we're not always going to understand everything,
No,
but we need to be the channel, so to speak, for lack of better words,
Mhm.
for that hierarchical energy, to cut through even maybe the chaos.
yeah, right. I agree. Blavatsky said that Buddhas and Christs galore are waiting to incarnate into the world when there are parents who can sufficiently bring out those higher qualities in them. So that means you have to have parents who have some occult or esoteric background and understanding that they can nurture their children and bring out those Buddhic and Christ-like qualities in the children. I had one.
And we're
daughter.
seeing, I believe we're seeing that more and more. I have always worked with children, and I've homeschooled all of my children and my grandchildren, and have used the Waldorf way. And
It's a good
so,
thing.
yes, that is always the goal. We can't just put it in a box and say we think the kid needs this or that, but we can
Right.
just keep unfolding as we're led, and of course with the physicality of the academics as well.
That's right.
So I see it
Okay.
happen more and more, and it's a wonderful and beautiful thing. And like I always have to remember, the few carry the many.
Yep.
It's just the way of it.
Yeah, that's right. So it's been that way. It's a form of alchemy. We're going to have to finish for tonight, and we'll pick up next week where we're leaving off here tonight. So
Well,
same
I'd like to
subject.
thank you. I'm sorry, excuse me. I'd really like to thank you. And I especially enjoyed this one of all of them. They've all
Yeah.
been great. They've all been great, but this one is like, super duper.
Thanks. Well, we got more to talk about next week.
Well, I look forward
Same
to it.
subject. All right. Look forward to it also. All right. Thanks with that.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you.
David.